But let's begin with some context. You wrote about the dominance of the value investing style for much of the post-war period. Can you describe the history of the growth and value investment styles and introduce some of the main characters in this fascinating story?
Well, if you go back 100 years to 1920, I would say that there was no such thing as an investing style. Now, I may be wrong. I wasn't alive at the time. But, I don't hear about there having been investing styles. There were some styles of manipulation of the market and so forth. And Wall Street wasn't regulated. So it was pretty much the Wild West. But I don't think there were investing styles. The first style that came along was what is now called value investing. And I would say it was started in the probably around 1950 by Ben Graham. And Ben Graham was Warren Buffett's teacher at Columbia and an early fund manager. And he practiced what we now call value investing. I don't think he called it value investing. Warren Buffett calls Graham's style of investing, which Buffett adapted in his early days, cigar butt investing. In other words, he looked for cast-offs that one would find in the gutter, cigars that maybe had a puff or two left in them that he could pick up for nothing. And that was the style at the time. You have to understand that this was what I would call a dumb environment. There was no data, there was no computers, there were no spreadsheets, no screening programs. If you wanted to get information on a company, you would have to write to the company and ask for their annual report, and they would have to send it back once it went through their administrative process, all of which took a lot of time. Or you could look through publications, dense publications that had data on companies, which most people did not bother to consult. And so somebody like Graham or Buffett could find little known situations where they could really scoop up incredible bargains because of other people's ignorance. Graham was very successful at that. Buffett did that, but then segued because of his connection and based on the advice from Charlie Munger to what he calls great companies at fair prices. In the 60s, there arose something which is now considered the polar opposite, which is called growth investing. Investing in great companies, fast-growing companies, which sell expensively, but are worth it. And that grew into something called the Nifty 50. And in the late 60s, by the time that I joined the business in 1969, or my first summer job in the business in 1968, the banks, which were the main investors of the time, many of them practiced Nifty 50 investing. The 50 greatest and fastest growing companies that were so wonderful that A, nothing bad could happen, and number two, so wonderful that there was no price too high. And as a consequence, they sold at extremely high prices, mainly expressed as PE ratios, price to earnings ratios. The normal PE ratio since World War II has been 16 times earnings, and many of the Nifty 50 sold at a multiple of 16, 30, 50, 70 times earnings, some cases 90 times earnings. But of course it was worth it because they were such great companies. Well, if you bought them the day I started work in 1969, and if you held them for 5 years, you lost almost all your money in the greatest companies in America because the stock market roughly halved, and the Nifty 50 did even worse because they fell from their elevated valuations. But anyway, there arose this dichotomy that you discuss between growth and value, and it persists to this day, and it is the main organizing principle in the equity management business. And people say, I'm a growth manager or I'm a value manager. And growth is basically thought of as great companies rapidly growing, primarily that means technology and biotech, albeit at high valuations, or prosaic, slow-growing companies bought cheaply, which means low valuations. And as you say, and as even Buffett would say, as I quote him in the memo, I think it's an artificial dichotomy used to organize the equity management business. And I think, as you say, not useful.